Officiating today's services is Rabbi Andrew Rosenkrantz and Cantor Harris.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody. If you have a cell phone or something that might make noise during this service, please go ahead and take a second to make sure it is silenced. We'll begin with our opening song and prayer. Shiviti Adonai lenegdi tamid ki mimini balemot Lachen samach libi vayagel kevodi af besari shkon lavetach ki lo tazov nafshi lishol lo titen chasircha lirot shachat todieni orach chaim orach chaim sova semachot et panecha nimot b'mincha netzach shiviti Adonai lenegdi tamid ki mimini bal emot.
Just as a reminder, everybody could double check your cell phones, make sure they're off. If you have an Apple Watch or anything along those lines, those go off as well. I have set the eternal always before me. God is at my side. I shall not be moved. Therefore does my heart exult and my soul rejoice. My being is secure. For you will not abandon me to death, nor let your faithful one see destruction. You show me the path of life. Your presence brings fullness of joy. Enduring happiness is your gift. Seeing so many people here is a testament to Gary and his family. If you measure a life by the days that are filled between when somebody is born and when somebody dies, I believe it's measured by the happiness that they give back to the world, the family that they are blessed to be able to raise, the positive energy and the fun and excitement of life. And that's who Gary was. He brought so much joy to so many people. Is this not on? A little bit. Is it good? Can you guys hear? I think the volume might need a little bit adjusting. Much better. Okay. Nope. Did that work? Okay. Better. There we go. Okay. We're all good now. In Judaism, we talk about the Olam Haba, the world to come. We don't call it heaven, and we don't call it heaven for a number of reasons. It's got these connotations of people seeing each other, or definitions that people have, these images of who knows? We don't know, so we just call it the Olam Haba. The world hereafter is how it translates. And in Judaism, we learn that there is merit earned for being able to go to wherever that place is, that Olam Haba. One of the greatest merits is the way in which you give back give back to your family with love, give back to your friends, your children, the spirituality you put out there in the world through the kind of person who Gary was, with his effervescence, his sense of humor, his intelligence, his representation as an attorney, his fun, his life of the party, everything who he was. And as we say today, Zichrono Livracha, may his memory be for blessing. But what stands out for me for that Olam Haba is the idea of what he did to give back to his community as well. I am sure that every moment he saw his daughter standing before Temple Beth Torah, giving by far what is the best Yom Kippur appeals in the history of the entire synagogue, and watching her well-spoken words and poise and demeanor and confidence. I can imagine that half of that came from him, and probably half of that, Ellie, came from you as well. Yesterday, the family showed me a flyer where Ellie and Gary were being honored for the work that they did at Temple Beth Zion, is that it? On Royal Palm Beach Boulevard, where the kids were raised. And of course, it was the sentiments of gratitude for doing so much for the synagogue. Giving back is the Olam Haba, whether it's for legal aid, where he used his acumen as an attorney, or whether it was for Jewish Family Services. When I came to Wellington, he was on their board and served there for many years as a trustee, or the Florida Brain Tumor Association, with the synagogue, or acting as a mentor to so many friends and so many family members and people who he worked with. That's the energy, that's the spirituality. That is what I think is meant by when we pray to allow someone into the Olam Haba, the next world to come, whatever that may be. Today, of course, we remember him to the memory of his parents, Sam and Lenore, and his dear brothers, Alan and Marty. And our hearts today go out to Ellie, Robin and Lee and Katie, and his beloved grandchildren, Isaac, Gabby, and Tyler. God, what are we that you have regard for us, and what are we that you are mindful of us? For we are like a breath, and our days are like a passing shadow. We come and go like grass, which in the morning shoots up renewed, and in the evening fades and withers. You cause us to turn to dust, saying, "Return, O mortal creatures. Would that we were wise, that we understood where we are going. For when we die, we carry nothing with us. Our glory does not accompany us. And so we mark the wholehearted, and behold the upright. They are the ones who will have peace." Today we mourn. Death has taken our beloved Gary, a friend, a husband, a father-in-law who was probably more like a father, a grandfather, an uncle, and so much more. And today in the morning, in our darkened world, there is silence and there's lamentation, and in tears there is loneliness. In lost and sorrow, may everybody here find comfort with the loving friends who surrounds the aura of this afternoon, and the honor of the memory that we are paying respect to them, to Gary. And the prayer, of course, is that God hears all of our prayers today and provides comfort. Gary's death is something that cannot be severed insofar as his memory is concerned, and the love that he gave to everyone who was involved in his life and was close to him, And so today we also give thanks to God for his companionship and friendship and that love that he shared. And even though it continues through the tenderness of memory, for the gift of his heart and mind that brought joy and happiness, but is now that precious remembrance, we give our thanks to Adonai. And so our tradition compels us in this time of grief to listen to the ancient words of the scriptures, which brings an ever new nearness of message to God, our community, the relationships that we have, and the friends that we have, in light as in darkness, and in joy as in sorrow, and in life as in death. We give thanks. Psalm 23. You're very familiar with. God is my shepherd, I shall not want. So why? Why is that such an important psalm that we read at a funeral? Today in particular, I believe that it adds a little bit of importance, extra importance. We don't know why in this world there has to be bad things that happen, especially to good people. And we don't know or understand why there is sickness. But what we do know is that we can pull each other through. And Ellie, the patience and love that you gave. Robin, I know that you were there all along as well. And making sure that Gary always knew that he was being cared for and cared after. These many years of that caring applies to Psalm 23 because God is here. Like the shepherd, God is mustering, God is counting. I don't know why, you don't know why there has to be sickness, but today God isn't giving the answers by pushing behind or leading in front, but like the shepherd, giving comfort, giving support next to us. Adonai Roi Lo Echsar.
Adonai Roi Lo Echsar Bino Deshe Yarbitzeni Al Mei Menuchot Yenaleni Nafshi Shovev Yancheni B'maglei tzedek Yancheni B'maglei tzedek Leman Shemo Gam ki eilech begetz al mavet Lo irara ki ata imadi Shivtecha umishantecha Hema yenachamuni Taroch lefanai Shulchan neged zorai Dishanta vashemen roshi Kasire vaya Aktov v'chesed yedifuni Kol yemei chayai V'shavti b'veit Adonai le'orech yamim echsar. Adonai roi lo echsar.
Let's read together. Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. For thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Esainai el harim me'ain yavo ezri. I lift my eyes to the mountains. What is the source of my help? My help comes from Adonai, maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way. Your protector will not slumber. And see, the protector of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. God is your guardian. God is your protection at your right hand. The sun will not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. God will guard you from all harm. God will guard your soul, your going and coming, now and forever. Amen. In the midst of his sorrow, we read in our scriptures in the book of Job that Job cried out, Adonai Natan, Vadonai Lakach, Yehi Shem, Adonai Mevarach. God has given, God has taken away. Blessed be the name of God. And so as an ancient people, we are well acquainted with grief and with the valley of shadows. Death and sorrow are not strangers to us, but the centuries have taught us that a good name endures beyond the grave and that there is strength in faith. When we say that a good name lives beyond the grave, what that means is that the memory continues. The body may be gone, but everything that Gary was and who he represented will continue. It will continue in his children. It will continue in Gabby and Isaac and Tyler. And one day that won't be there. Nothing is meant to last forever. But as I look out of all these friends, I know that those memories have a life of their own for you. Many good times, as I understand it. I would have loved to have known Gary as I was somebody like him, with his love and fascination with music, having a good time, entertaining, just being with people. And so we say with Job, Adonai Natan, God, you gave, and you gave a loved one who will not be forgotten, and for all that was good and enduring in his life, we offer the deepest thanks of our hearts. But today we say Adonai Lakach, God, you have taken away. And we pray for a level of strength to be with us now as we turn our broken hearts into an altar of trust, before which we acknowledge the sovereignty of God by saying, Yehi Shem Adonai Mevarach. Blessed is the name of God now and forever. Let's take a few moments of just silent thought and prayers and love, and we'll come back together in a few moments.
I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue and clouds of white, the bright blessed day, the dark sacred night. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people going by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're really saying, I love you. I hear babies cry, I watch them grow. They'll learn much more than I'll ever know. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Yes, I think to myself, what a wonderful world.
What a wonderful world, and we are going to hear about that wonderful world from some words that his family is going to share, Robin, Lee, and Ellie. I think, Robin, you're going to go last, right? Okay.
I wore heels so you could see me. And I asked them to stand with me to hold me up. Thank you all, not only for coming today, but for the love, support, and compassion you have given our family over the last 6 years. It is so important to us and has been so helpful. I love that Robin wrote such an eloquent obituary. If you didn't read it, please do, and that saves me telling a whole bunch of stories. Gary and I lived across the hall from each other my freshman year at GW. We became friends with a group of guys who became lifelong friends. On Valentine's Day that year, 52 years ago, Gary and I became friends with benefits. And as many of you know, we celebrated that event more than our anniversary. We continued to date other people, but we knew that we brought out the best in each other. We became and stayed best friends forever. Gary's sense of humor came out in many different ways. He loved music and volunteered to DJ at GW radio station. He told me to listen one night, and then he dedicated a song to me, 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover. While he was working in New York and I was still at GW, we talked about getting married. One day I called him and his ex answered the phone. I told him he was welcome to date others and I would do the same. He eventually convinced me to come to Florida with him for vacation, and when he came to pick me up, he made me really, really angry. I told him I wasn't going, and he pulled out a dozen roses and a ring. Another time, when Lee came over, Robin was at camp, and we knew he was going to ask for her hand. Gary just razzed him and razzed him and razzed him till I thought he was going to give up. Luckily, he didn't. He persevered. Gary was in New York my senior year, working with his dad, Sam, and brother, Marty, in the garment district in New York. That is where he found out he was great at negotiating. He had to haggle for quarter pennies a yard. selling fabric. Gary grew up with W magazine in the house and consistent talk about women's fashion. Before Robin's bat mitzvah, we went to Lily Rubin, the place to go at the time. I'm pretty sure I was in cutoffs and a Bronx Zoo t-shirt. So they ignored us. We had our Pretty Woman before it happened in the movies. Then they saw Gary picking out clothes and realized he knew what he was doing. My page won't turn. And they had to sell to him. They sent me into the fitting room and dressed me for work and parties. I'm not sure many of you knew that Gary was inherently lazy. He could pay someone to do something for him, he would. I discovered this when we moved in together. We discussed dividing chores, you know me, had to be equal. And we agreed the first one to run out of underwear would do the laundry. He went out and bought more underwear. He loved practicing law and became the youngest managing partner of the firm until we went to a neurologist in 1995 after lots of tests did not explain his symptoms. I told him I thought he was scared we were spending too much money for Robin's bat mitzvah, which was very odd because I was the one worried about money all the time and not him. They finally sent us to a neurologist, and he said, I'm going to send you for a brain scan and bet the next paycheck we won't find anything. We never collected. But while in Boston, Mass General and Harvard were starting mapping the brain and asked Gary if he would be part of the study. Of course he said yes, hoping he could make a difference. The night before the surgery, love of life, he and Marty, we went to Legal Seafood, had 2 martinis and 2-pound lobsters. And why am I forgetting her name? Yeah, Tammy, and I just barely sipped anything. Almost every day, I try and take a few minutes to meditate or pray in my own way. My thoughts include my thanks for God bringing Gary and me together, for the way he loves me, wants the best for me, brings out the best, and sometimes the worst, for his lessons in family, forgiveness, and silver linings, for his engaging personality, his sense of humor, his intuition, his compassion, his intellect. I thank God for getting rid of the cancer, getting him through the stroke, and giving him the energy to fight every day to be the best he could be, to not be depressed and try and live life to the fullest so we could grow old together in love. While we lived through the last few days, while Gary chose hospice instead of fighting another battle, he and I relived all of the things we never thought we would get to do after 40, especially all the trips we took. We couldn't decide which one we loved the most, just that we loved doing them together. And of course, following the Canes' ups and downs since 1981. We raised 2 amazing people who inherited his moral compass, his humor, his concern for others, and his kindness. And with some bumps in the road, they each found fabulous partners and gave us amazing grandchildren. I know most of you know this, but I want to say it anyway. Without Robin and Dave, his caregiver for almost the entire time, Lee Evan, Lee Adam, and Katie, he would have not had the quality of life he had these last 6 years. I am so grateful and thankful to all of you. I also appreciate how many of you called him their second dad, or a brother from another mother. He felt the same way. We started telling stories the last few days, some of which were things that Gary did with the kids while I was at work that I had no idea went on. But the stories made me realize that the last 6 years I lost my perspective of what an amazing marriage we had, and a special kind of love that got us through the ups and downs of life, with lots of mutual respect, sex, and laughter. I have grieved him twice while he was alive. In the next few days, months, and years, I will grieve the Gary that is no longer here. focusing on the great life and family we had together for over 45 years. I've lost my best friend, and I will truly miss him.
You got it, Mom?
Yep.
I have to go after you. Eesh. Got everyone crying. So, I think you can measure a life in a lot of different ways. And I think we always talked about the stories. It's how we always thought about it. And so I'm going to tell a few. When Robin and I were growing up, we played a lot of sports. Baseball, soccer, volleyball, swimming. And by the time we got into the travel sports years, Robin was doing travel swimming, and Mom chose to do the thing that most parents do, which is be an observer. My dad made a different choice when it came to travel soccer. He decided to be a coach, which would be totally fine if he knew anything about soccer. But he knew nothing. I mean, if you've watched Ted Lasso, he knew less than Ted Lasso. All the way, as long as we played soccer, he only knew how to kick a soccer ball with his toe, which is literally the first thing you're taught not to do in soccer. I felt very fortunate that he was my coach. We got to spend a lot more time together than we might have otherwise. But as time went on, it became quite clear what his role actually was. Our head coach, Saeed Shaverdi, was an Iranian who knew very much about soccer and was known to have a little bit of a hot head. And so my dad's primary role was body man. He had to make sure Saeed didn't get kicked out of the game. Because one, it's not a good look to get kicked out of a youth soccer game. And two, if he got kicked out, we have no idea who would have coached the team. As Katie's gotten to know our family, she learned pretty quickly that we talk about everything. And I mean everything, which can be a bit of a shock. I only seriously dated 4 people in my life, and despite my Jewish heritage, they were all Christian or Catholic. And they went in descending order of how much they observed. And so when I came home junior year, I was in our house, we were playing pool, and doing what we do, telling stories. And my sister asked me about my college girlfriend, my junior year girlfriend. And, told her it's going well, this, that, and the other thing. She says, "How's the sex?" And I said, "Robin, it's the same as Sarah in high school. She's very strict Catholic. We don't have sex." And my mom said, "What the hell is wrong with you?" My buddy Doug was on the ground. Just could not imagine having this conversation with his family. And so the next, I didn't think much of it. The next morning, I woke up the same way we always woke up at home. I got a little change in my pocket going jing-a-ling-a-lang, blasting over the stereo. And I get up, and my dad, who had been hiding, opens the doors to the closet, walks out and says, "Son, do you have anything you'd like to tell us?" It would have been fine. He wasn't judging. He just wanted to make sure he knew it was okay, if that's what you get it. My dad loved a lot of things, but I'd say he probably loved 3 things the most: my mom, partying, and golf. The Hurricanes are somewhere in there, I'm sure. I felt very fortunate as I got older, I got a chance to participate in the member guest at Maiaku. It's just a great tournament. Like, it's a party, it's multi-day, you play golf together, you better like your partner, because you're gonna spend a lot of time with them. So we played a few years together, and we fucking sucked. We were terrible. We did not win anything over 3 years playing together. Except we did win every year Miss Congeniality. I mean, I could just imagine being a team getting excited to play Gary and Lee because 1, you know you're going to kick the crap out of them, and 2, you know you're going to have a party. And man, we won the party. We won the party every year. We came home from the hospital on Thursday of last week, and I went for a jog. Ran by our old house on Blackberry Drive, only about a half mile away. And I got to think back to when we brought my dad home from the stroke. You know, he was still himself, but obviously couldn't move as well. And his favorite thing to do with me was to go on runs. And so rather than doing the thing that I should have done, which is get a running wheelchair, we took his regular wheelchair and we strapped his leg to the leg, his arm to the arm, and we went. And he would always say, faster. He would always say, further. And he would always point in the direction that took us over the roots coming out of the sidewalk, which is a real problem when it's not a running wheelchair. A year later, they came to service the wheelchair, and the wheelchair tech looks at me and is like, what did you do to these tires? These things are supposed to last longer than the wheelchair. My dad, I was very young when my dad had the brain tumor. I was only 10. My sister was 13. She remembers it better than I do. And he was, as I know him, all post-brain tumor. The stroke was really tough. You know, I came home to help out, and it's interesting because one of Dad's things was always silver linings. And I think the stroke might have been the best thing that ever happened to me. If he hadn't had the stroke, I never would have met Katie. Never would have gotten married and had him walk me down the aisle. He never would have gotten to meet Tyler. Never would have had Dave and Lloyd become a part of the family. And it truly changed the trajectory of my life for the better. He really fought the last 6 years. And when I got to say goodbye, I told him, I said, I know the stroke was really, really hard, but you and I never would have gotten to spend this much time together otherwise. And so it was a blessing too. My hope is I can be as good of a dad as he was to me, as good as a husband, uncle, and friend. And I will miss all the things, especially just the little phone calls. Hey, hey, hey. I love you, Dad.
I'm not supposed to apologize during this time, but I am going to apologize for the length you are all sitting listening to all of us, and I appreciate it. Lock in, because I got a couple pages here. I feel like I've been preparing for this death for most of my life at this point, 30 years, 36. And he always beat the odds until now, like a cat with 9 lives. And I'm so thankful I was able to tell him always how I felt, how his change in perspective also made my own life better. Mine just happened a little earlier than Lee's. Since 1995, I feel like we've never left anything unsaid. And that is a true gift in life, one I am very thankful for. In the early years, I have very vivid memories of a couple things. Every time we drive into the house, he would say the same phrase to my brother and I: go upstairs, brush your teeth, wash your face, put your pajamas on, and we'll come upstairs and tuck you in. That meant we're not going to bed yet and still partying downstairs, so get out of our hair. He was inherently lazy. He would wait for us to get up to move his plate. He would not get up, even if he had to go to the bathroom, so that we could clean up after him. And one day we were out in California, my cousins lived out there, and we would go every year for Thanksgiving. And I had run out of water, we're all outside, I see my dad has a big glass. I'm like, aha, I'm gonna get him this time. So I go take a big old chug, and it was straight up vodka. He still got me too. He and I, Marilyn and Jamie, attended Weight Watchers together when we were young, probably because the one weekend that he took me to a national swim meet and not my mother, in between prelims and finals, where I was in the final heat, lane 5, which meant you were just off the top. He took me for a meatball sub at Subway. And my coach, when we got back and were done with the finals, wanted to know what the hell he did to me in between races. He, Lee, and I would watch wrestling together on Saturday mornings, and we would wrestle. And we would wrestle, and we would laugh, and the only reason we would stop laughing was because I was by far his best audience, would laugh until I farted. And then they knew they had to stop. I remember the day my dad told Lee and I he had a brain tumor. It was shortly after my bat mitzvah. We sat on their old, huge red leather couch that they got from Marty and Tammy. And they sat on the large ottoman oddly close to us. And so we were eye to eye. I remember his deep brown eyes looking straight into mine while he spoke, welling up with tears. And then I lunged at his neck for a hug. I spent a lot of time nudged in this crevice between my dad's neck. He had oddly bony shoulders and like a collarbone that stuck out no matter how much weight he put on. So there's one little spot. And over the years, especially the last week, I always took a snapshot of that spot in my mind, flashing back to the earliest memory of when I thought I would lose him the first time, as a reminder that I didn't. And to this day, this moment to breathe in what I did have. My dad's thirst for life only got more intense after his surgery, once he regained his ability to speak and his strength. He never missed a party before, and he certainly did not miss one after. My parents celebrated Lee's bar mitzvah in a way that others had no idea. They had hit the 3-year mark 2 years and 9 months longer than they had given my father to live in the first place. And so we spent the next 30 years giving back to the community that saved our lives together. Every year we celebrate his March 1st rebirth with martinis and a lobster. And I, all of us, got to tell him how grateful we were that he made it to that day and tell him how we felt. Why the brain tumor didn't change my dad's impulsivity or quick temper, It did force him to quit work and dedicate more time to us. Our relationship evolved, especially after I left him my AP Psych paper senior year that narrated all the ways his tumor and recovery emphasized his lack of patience, increased his level of frustration, and how it impacted me being home with him during that phase. While we did get to hang out and watch General Hospital together, and he'd convince me to get something to eat with him that Mom would never allow, it was an intense time. We spoke frequently, he and I, about how that was the pivotal moment in our relationship. He reflected and tried to change the way I saw him. I left for college that year, and when I would come down for a visit, Mom was at work, and I would follow his daily routine. Head to the gym, spend more than necessary there because he was the mayor and everyone needed to talk to him. Then go to Starbucks and chat with all the MILFs from spin class. Then, once I would return to Nashville or New York, I swear he would call me specifically when I was teaching or in class, and he would leave this message. Robin, hey, 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 it's 73 degrees. I'm leaving the course. The top's down, not a cloud in the sky. What you doing? It's the middle of winter. In father-daughter weekends at Vandy, where he only stayed at the Embassy Suites because they had a free happy hour from 5 to 7, we'd sit in their lobby, sip martinis, then go to whatever fancy spot he found for dinner and end up riding mechanical bulls on Lower Broadway. My father always outlasted me. I'd go to bed and he would end up on Printer's Alley listening to the blues. I would generally come down for the high holidays because that was a very important time to all of us. Not because we're super Jews, but because of the family traditions. Being at services, sitting next to my father, wrapped in his blanket-sized tallis that he got in Israel. I would always see that picture of him at the Wailing Wall wrapped in tefillin and that talit in my head, singing songs from memory. And you all know Gary was quick with a joke. Sarcasm was his second language. Enid and Larry said this week, he's the only person who could insult you and make you laugh at the same time. And so you rarely knew if he was joking or not. One year, I think around 2004, my dad tried to tell me not to come down because a hurricane was headed towards them. First, he's Gary, so I thought he was joking. Second, I was born in Florida. These things turn all the time, so I came down. I got on the plane, and we ended up having a hurricane party more than Yom Kippur that year. And every subsequent year after that, until I moved back home in 2010, I always had to ask, seriously, when my dad would taunt me with the hurricane report. Together, we saw multiple concerts, including attending CMA Fest twice. Music was part of my dad's charm. If you said 2 or 3 words together and he knew from a song, he would immediately start singing it, and then it would be stuck in your head forever. The soundtrack of my life is a majority of songs that would play during parties, that I learned while changing the 5 CD disc changer based on a specific cultivated list that my dad gave me before the party began. There was a list for cocktail hour, then once food was served, and lastly when he was ready to turn it up and dance the night away with my mom. Thankfully, my husband has the same taste in music, so the soundtrack just continues to play today. 3 days before his stroke, we threw my mom a 65th birthday party on the golf course outside because it was still COVID. On July 11th, the night before, Lee, my dad, and Mom and I finished a bottle of Don Julio Añejo together, surprise, surprise, laughing, singing, and my dad told Lee and I how proud he was of us, how grateful he was for his life. The next morning, life changed all over again. The 4 of us drove up to Jacksonville. We celebrated his 65th birthday with all his favorite foods, and so many of you shared videos wishing him well and happy birthday. Once again, we were all given the chance to show gratitude, to encourage him to fight for his life, and he did. He just didn't make it back as much as he did before. As you heard from Lee, we are all still thankful for the 6 additional years he was able to be part of. I spent each call, visit, and day reminding myself that no matter how hard it was this going to be the last? And I live today without a single regret in the last 6 years because of that. That is the gift I am truly grateful for, a lesson I wouldn't have learned if not for going through his brain tumor with him 36 years ago. Some of you know that for the last 6 years, I have been called the Gary Whisperer. He and I could have earned a lot of money on that game show pyramid. He would get one word out, one gesture, and I knew what he wanted. So, one more time, I promised my dad, while he was still conscious at home, that I would say what he couldn't say today. And it took a while to get through some of this, and I've added some additions on his behalf. Isaac, Gabby, and Tyler, you are his greatest achievement. He was happiest with each of you, mainly because he didn't have to raise you two. Bringing Isaac to football and Panther games, Gabby getting to coach your soccer team and stand with you at the Passover table while you learn to do the Monish Tanah. And Tyler, holding him and looking at him and realizing that the Kornfeld name was actually gonna live on was pure joy. Throughout my entire childhood, even before middle school, my dad made sure I knew that all men were pigs, even him. I had a lot of interesting boys I dated, and at the end of college and the beginning of grad school, I had a serious boyfriend, also not Jewish. He came to Duke with me for a tailgate, and we took a fantastic family picture. My dad printed it out, folded it over, because we were all short and he was tall. Then, when I finally broke up with him, he was taking an art class at Wellington High School. He unfolded the picture and used his new learned blending technique to paint the boy right out of it. Made him a forest in the background. And so starting in 2010, remembering that, he made Lee stand at the end of pictures so it would be easier to cut him off. My dad did not like you very much at first. Always felt that I chose a fixer-upper. And I've learned over the last couple of days, my dad was a little bit of a fixer-upper too. Honey, he adored you. He was so proud of the man you became for his daughter, especially in the last few years. Much like when he would call Lee and yell for Katie, he would do the same to me after I didn't give him enough detail or fun in the conversation. He wanted to hear your stories, your construction defect cases, your managing partner woes. He valued the time you spent talking about and listening to music, when you confided in him, when you opted to buy your firm. And most of all, he saw you as the father he was as well. Lee Evan, your favorite part of the last 6 years were his. He watched you turn into a family man right before his eyes. He and I would talk about how our relationship, yours and mine, mirrored his and his brother's at this point. It gave him respite and joy to know we would always have each other until the bitter end, just like he and Marty. Taking him to California 2 years ago is a core memory that you and I will live for the next 50 years, and one I know Dad and Marty are celebrating together as we speak. And of course, his greatest gift, his greatest choice, the greatest mom and wife. This he got out very clear. He wanted me to thank you publicly. Everyone in this room is here because you kept his life going, his friendships connected. You continued his legacy when he couldn't speak or physically do it himself. There is no one braver, no one more dedicated, and no wife stronger than you are. He is giving you the freedom to really live the rest of your life, burden-free, not as a caregiver for the first time in 36 years. So one more shot lives. One more shot, Mommy. We're right with you. And so for the final time, the four of us last Thursday, together in the room facing the end of his life, my dad was able to tell us, and we were able to tell him, what an amazing and wonderful life we all lived together. Once more, we welcomed the stories and the messages, and all of you had an opportunity to do the same. To share with him what a man, a medical myth, and an absolute legend he is, and always will be, living through us. My father was the mediator. He kept the family together. He improved everyone's life he was part of. I will always hear, hey, 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 in my head when I pick up the phone to call him, even though I can't. I will visibly see his eye roll, which turned into a whole head roll in the last 6 years when somebody says something ridiculous. And I am so thankful that my father saw me become the best version of myself, one that he knew he could leave on this earth to carry his legacy. He has a shot glass in his left hand. Dad, I was the little girl you carried. You have lived such a wonderful life from your sunrise until your very sunset. Sei gesund, Dad. I love you. To Tevye.
I have heard many beautiful tributes at memorial services in my time, but collectively as a family, I don't think I've ever heard from all three of you more beautiful of a tribute. Although I will say there was a certain theme that came out through all three of you that I've been the rabbi for 12 years, but I don't think I learned a lot actually about my president and her family, and I can picture him, high holidays, Robin mentioned left-hand side with what's known in Hebrew as the talit gadol. That thing was huge, and it wrapped all the way around him. Some of the, yeah, absolutely. I just want to add that the love that you shared, the caring, the tightness that you all shared, those are emotions. Actions also speak so much. And Robin, you mentioned it, but I have to tell you that 2 years ago when, I forgot, Robin, it was either you or Ellie told me about how you guys were going to make sure that your dad got to go say goodbye to his brother. Moved me and touched me in so many different ways. That's what you do when you respect and love a parent so much. May Gary's memory endure among us as a blessing. In your own time, Adonai, when we too are called into eternity, may we leave this life secure in the faith that in your light we shall see light. In life and in death we cannot go where you are not, and where you are, hope endures. In a moment, we are going to rise for El Malei Rachamim, which is the prayer that asks God, whatever that heaven or Olam Haba is, to accept Gary's spirit, Gary's soul. Before we do that, just quick announcements. There's going to be a graveside interment immediately following this. There's a lot of people here. The family certainly understands that not everyone is going to be there. So certainly don't feel compelled or obliged or anything along those lines. All of the Shiva information is in the program. The one thing that I will add among the hours that they are welcoming guests to express their condolences is that there will be a minyan service at 7, which will be tonight and tomorrow night and Thursday night. So with that, let's invoke God's name and all please rise for El Malei Rachamim.
מלא רחמים שוכן במרומים המצא מנוחה נכונה תחת כנפי השכינה עם קדושים וטהורים כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים את נשמת גרשם בן שמואל שהלך לעולמו בעל הרחמים יסירהו בסתר כנפיו לעולמים ויצרור החיים את נשמתו אדוני הוא נחלתו וינוח ושלום על משכבו ונאמר אמן.
Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Gershom ben Shmuel, who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let him find refuge in your eternal presence. Let his soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is now his inheritance. May he rest in peace. Amen.
Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, this does conclude the chapel portion of the service. We're now going to head out to the grave. We're going to take the casket out first. I'm going to ask the immediate family to follow directly behind the casket, and if everybody else would follow behind them. You do have the option to walk, take your vehicles, and we have a golf cart to take you there and back. When you step out the double doors, you're going to look diagonally to the right and see a green tent. That's where we're headed. Thank you.